Welcome everybody to Cafe Better Sports. Today we're going to talk about our Premier Fantasies League and how you can just make the odds better for yourself when you are playing this game. So we're going to speak specifically to Captaincy today, and to help us with all of that, we've got Gabriel, who is part of our Stretford Tinkerers and who does very, very well every week in his team. Hey Gabriel, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. Let's chat a little bit about captaincy because
Mm,
picking the right captain can actually change your game week completely. You can go from literally a zero game week to an awesome game week. So
that's
share with
right.
us what you think makes for a good captain.
Mm. So there's a lot that goes into it. This is, in fact, just about an hour ago or so, there was a message on a group with some friends where they said this game is 20% statistics and 80% luck, you know.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, that is what it is. But there are some steps that you can take to try and better your chances to get high scores and picking the right captains. So one of the important things that I think you should do is look at statistics from the past. For
Yeah,
example, I'll use game week one as an example. Mo Salah's been in the Premier League now, it's his fourth season, and every season that he's been in the Premier League, he has scored on opening day.
right.
So one of the options, or a very good captaincy option going into the beginning of Fantasy Premier League, will be to have Mo Salah as your captain, because you know he's done it before, and
Yeah.
chances are is he can do it again. So
Mm.
that is, especially now, it's very tricky. We don't know how the teams will play. We don't know how the players will do. So, like, you can predict something and it goes completely the other way. So the only way to really get your chances higher is to look at the past and then see what they do. So I've got a few recommendations with regards to that, especially
Mm-hmm.
because it's difficult to pick between certain players. You've got your standout options, and sometimes you don't know who to pick. Luckily, if
Right.
you go on the Premier League website itself, you're able to actually compare the statistics of certain players. And
Fantastic.
the better statistics means you want to lean towards the player with the better statistics. So that's something that you can do. So check out maybe Salah versus Aubameyang. If Aubameyang's statistics are better, especially in the more recent times, because they will
Mm.
be playing closer to recent times, then that perhaps might be the option to go for. And the other option that I suggest as well is perhaps having a look at the fixtures, and
Right.
then there's different resources that you can use to actually check out how the players did against certain teams. So you can check out maybe in the past, Mo Salah's playing against West Bromwich Albion. How did he do against them the last time or the last two times they played? And then perhaps take something from there.
Mm. And you raise a good point in terms of that, because if you look at how they play, there's generally a certain trend in how they play
Mm.
with each other in various places.
Exactly. And if you've got that trend down, or if you have an idea of how they're going to play, then you'll kind of know what to expect as well, to a certain extent. We call that the eye test. So, of course, statistics do play a role, but you also need to watch football and watch the way they play. Because it's easy to say, all right, this person took 6 shots in the game, so he's likely to do the same in the next game, but those 6 shots could have been wild shots that went one to a corner, one shot turned around and came back to your keeper. Now I'm being ridiculous at the moment, but you know, watching that just goes to show that watching the game actually will help you in making certain decisions as well.
Yeah, and you also want to look at the consistency of the player. I think that's very
Yes,
important
exactly.
when choosing a captain,
Mm.
right?
Exactly. That boils down to what my partner says, Keegan. Form versus fixtures. You always
Right.
want to go with form over fixtures, because it doesn't
Mm.
help that. Let's say Mo Salah scores. I know I keep bringing him up, but I mean he's been
But he's
very
an obvious.
consistent FPL asset. He is an obvious, you know. But let's say he scores in 4 games in a row against many different teams. So against Man City, against Man United, against Tottenham, or you have Sergio Aguero, who is playing against Fulham and then West Brom and then Watford, but he hasn't scored in 3 of those or 2 of those games. You're not going to trust him for the next game. You'll rather trust
Yeah,
Salah, who is on form. And that is
correct.
a very, very important thing to look at as well.
Okay. Now, when you're selecting your captain, obviously there are your obviouses that you spoke about it, such as Mo Salah, such as Kevin De
Mm.
Bruyne. But are there any captains that are not usually picked, what I would call a differential captain, that could
Mm.
separate you from the pack and just earn you awesome points without having to break your budget as well?
Yes, yes, definitely. So I've actually got a few names that come to mind. So especially recently, after the first 2 game weeks,
Mm,
the Leicester City fullbacks. So people don't usually pick captains outside of perhaps Trent Alexander-Arnold if they're in defense. But
right.
if you look at the way these guys have been playing at the moment, there's Timothy Castagne, he's had 2 games. In the first game, he had
Yes.
2 assists. In the second game, he had 1 goal. I believe the first game he had 2 assists and a clean sheet as well. So that
Mm,
probably gave him a collection of like 14 points and as a captain that'll give you a 28 or so
28
points.
points.
Uh,
Yeah.
Same as James Justin, also the left back at Leicester City. The first game he had an assist and a clean sheet, and the second game he had 1 goal. So he's pretty high up there, and it shows a pattern of consistency as well. And
Right.
also with regards to other differentials, they are your fullbacks. So
Right.
along with getting clean sheets, they're the players who are likely to move up and perhaps contribute something in front of goal. So
Mm,
those are very important to look at. And then it all boils down to form versus fixtures. So you also want to look at the new teams, such as Leeds. You haven't
yes.
had any of these guys in the Premier League for a long time, so you're going to have to look at consistency. And in the first 2 games, you had Patrick Bamford of Leeds, the striker, who has contributed in both games. The game against Liverpool, the game against Fulham, he contributed. Then you have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who had a decent season last season, his
Mm,
first decent season, and he started firing off extremely well. And you also want to look at the players that they have with them. So, for
right.
example, you just got James Rodriguez, who we do know can play football extremely well. He can assist, he can pass, he can score. So having James Rodriguez behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin is positive, and that's going to boil down to your eye test. You're going to want to see, okay, this is something that can happen. Then somebody recently as well, of late, we have Raul Jimenez, who has been a
Yes.
consistent scorer. He is overlooked quite a bit. I
Mm,
think maybe it's the names of other players that sway them towards them. But Jimenez is a consistent goal scorer, and he showed against Man City as well. He did score a goal, and he's got competent players behind him as well who can feed him the ball, even if they are playing a more defensive formation. So these are the kind of players that you want to look at. Jimenez himself, he scored in the first game and the second game. So these are players that you want to look at, and form versus fixtures, consistency. Those are the guys that you're looking for when it comes to captaincy.
would you say it adds value also to look at your team, your devilish duos, I want to call them. So back in the day, you used to have Lacazette and Aubameyang together. You knew that when
Mm.
you have them both in your team, you'd captain one and you'd have the other one there who's going to feed the goals. What we saw over the weekend, we saw Harry Kane and Son working together to
Mm.
make those goals happen. Does it add value to captain someone who's part of a duo?
100%. You know that when you're part of a duo, then goals will come either way, right? So having one of them or captain or will either get you goals or assists, as was the case with Son and Harry Kane. I mean, Harry Kane providing 4 assists for Son, you'd think it's the other way around, but
Right?
it's the numbers that count.
Yeah.
And Harry Kane's numbers, he did get 4 assists, he did get a goal as well, and that skyrocketed his points across the board. I believe last season, Jimenez and Traore scored and assisted each other about 10 times in the season, which is
Correct.
one of the
Correct.
highest statistically highest numbers in the Premier League era itself. Right. So Jimenez and Traore, I believe, assisted and scored with or for each other in the Premier League last season about 10 times. So that's quite an incredible duo to have, or quite an incredible number to have, especially in recent Premier League era. And that's something that you want to look at as well, because you know that if these two guys are on the team together and this is their history, then chances are it might happen again. It's that team chemistry and the knowledge and understanding of each other on the field. And it just makes it easier for them to score or assist when the other guys on the field with them as well.
Fantastic. Lastly, in this game week coming up, in game week 3, if you had to, on the palm of your hand, have 5 captains that you would captain, who would they be?
Whew. That is
now that
on
question
the
is
spot.
an on-the-spot question.
That is 100% on the spot. But okay, so based on just history, Mo Salah is definitely one. He can't not be a captaincy option. Same as Aubameyang, also very, very easy to captain him as well. So going with a few differentials, of course, they haven't been doing too well, but I think that Timo Werner might be a very good option as well. I believe that he's really struggled to adapt a little bit because it's the first time he's playing against really big opponents who we know the Premier League defense it's a different game. It's a different story. But it looks like he might adjust. And it also seems like some of the players that are behind him just aren't able to do what he needs them to do. But with the return of Pulisic and the return of Hakim Ziyech, I think that Timo Werner might be a very good option. I also believe that, when you beat Manchester United, you beat them at your own peril, because they will come back very angry, especially particular
they
players.
Come back strong,
Like Bruno Fernandes.
I knew you'd say that.
He gets upset, and he's a serial winner. He wants to win. So I believe he would be a very good captaincy option. And finally, I do want to say Kevin De Bruyne, but I also would like to go for Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling, naturally, he plays in a higher position. He seems to be locked in that Pep rotation that we're all very worried about. But as you could see in the game against Wolves, he did extremely well. He assisted Phil Foden's goal as well. So I think that Raheem Sterling is also a very good option to have as your captain.
Thanks so much, Gabriel, for all the tips that you gave us on the captaincy. Like you said, it is a luck game. So, fortunately, though, we have a bit of added advantage in some of the stuff that you've said and some of what you've told us. And hopefully we have a good captaincy week. Thanks very much for your time, Gabriel.
It's always a pleasure. And just one last thing as well, before you disappear, do not panic making choices of captaincies and stuff. Very, very important. I'm sure there's a lot of people who took out Son. I'm one of them. Removed Son from the squad, and then he scores 4 goals. So and the panic will be bringing him back again. But those 4 goals have already happened. So there's no guarantee that it's going to happen again. So if you're doing that out of panic, try and avoid that and just move on with the plan that you had from the beginning. But outside of that, that's it. That's me. That's the advice. And again, always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. To everyone out there who's watching, please don't forget to like, share, and comment. Please tell us what you're going to do with your captaincy in game week 3. Let us know how we can be of assistance in future. If there's anything that you need help with, drop it in the comments and we will create a video just for you. If you have not already joined Premier Fantasies, the league, please use the code MAHL4P and join us today. We're going to have a lot of fun this season. Thank you very much for watching, and to all, a good night.